Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests, and welcome to the final instalment of Infinite Possibilities, Women in Rotary, presented by District 6960 and co-sponsored by Rotary Zones 33 and 34. I am Darrell Keys, Governor of Rotary District 6960, which represents all of Southwest Florida. I'm proud of this initiative and the team that has now produced 4 seminars highlighting some phenomenal women in our organization. Hopefully, you've been with us for previous seminars. In July, we hosted Dr. Sylvia Whitlock, the first female Rotary Club president who caused a sensation in both the California and US Supreme Courts, resulting in Rotary International removing gender requirements from membership. In August, we hosted Jenny Stotts, a troublemaking millennial who encouraged us all to find our Rotary happy and advocated for our Rotary Club members to mirror our community. And in September, past Rotary International Vice President, Dean Rose, gave a powerful presentation as she shared her personal journey and how it informed her involvement and leadership at the highest levels of this organization. And we're very excited to learn that just recently, Dean was appointed as a trustee of the Rotary Foundation. To all 3 of these women, we are grateful to them participating in Infinite Possibilities and highlighting what we all can do to make the world a better place. Our Rotary International theme for the year is Rotary Opens Opportunities, and the theme's image is an open door. All you need to do is walk through that door to find like-minded people who want to make the world a better place. Rotary is the platform. You are the difference, and we invite you to join with us. We round out our series with the extraordinary Jennifer Jones, who will be the first female president of Rotary International. Here to introduce Rotary International President-Nominee Jennifer is our host from Zones 33 and 34, Director Stephanie Urchik, joined by our co-host, Director Peter Kyle. Before I turn over the microphone to Director Stephanie, I want to thank you who have joined us for one or all of these seminars. The overwhelming response we have had from not only here, but from around the world has been humbling and gratifying. Now it's up to all of us to make that difference. Welcome, Director Stephanie.
Thank you, Governor Darrell, and welcome to the thousands of you who are participating on the call today or are joining us through Facebook live streaming. We have another outstanding presentation about the role of women in Rotary. Earlier, Governor Darrell referenced the US Supreme Court case that ruled that Rotary clubs may not exclude women from membership on the basis of gender. 33 years later, women are approximately 25% of our membership. While our numbers may be small, we are making our mark. For instance, 25 years ago, 8 women served as district governors for the first time. 15 years ago, Carolyn Jones was the first woman appointed as a trustee of the Rotary Foundation. 12 years ago, Catherine Reveau was the first woman elected to the RI Board of Directors. 7 years ago, Ann Matthews was the first woman to serve as RI Vice President, and Ann Britt Asabal served as the first female chair of the Executive Committee for the RI Board of Directors. 18 months ago, Brenda Cressy became the first woman to serve as chair of our Rotary Foundation. And effective October 1st, 2020, Jennifer Jones was selected to be the first woman to serve as Rotary International President in the year 2022-2023. And it is my pleasure today to introduce my friend Jennifer. Jennifer is the founder and president of Media Street Productions, a 25-year-old award-winning media company based in Windsor, Ontario. She is a proud member of the Rotary Club of Windsor-Roseland. Her talents have strengthened Rotary reach and impact through many roles, including serving as a trustee of the Rotary Foundation, Rotary International Vice President, and co-chair of the End Polio Now, Make History Today campaign, raising funds alongside Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Jennifer is a leader in cultivating experiential fundraising opportunities, such as Rotary's Polio Golf Day with Jack Nicholas in Jupiter, Florida, USA, which raised over $5.25 million for polio eradication in one day. She also was part of the team that created the innovative virtual COVID-19 Rotary Response event. That event raised money for COVID-19 relief projects and showcased Rotary's response around the globe. Working alongside political figures, celebrities, and global leaders, Jennifer uses her voice to raise awareness and hundreds of millions of dollars to eradicate disease, support peace, and provide clean water and sanitation in developing areas of the world. Her skill as an expert storyteller inspires hope and promise and motivates people to take action. She has received many honors and many recognitions, including Rotary's Service Above Self Award and the Citation for Meritorious Service, the YMCA Peace Medallion, the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal, and Wayne State University's Peacemaker of the Year Award, a first for a Canadian. Jennifer is married to Rotarian Nick Krajicic, who is a local family physician. They share a love for many things, including travel, cycling, golf, relaxing at their family cottage, and of course, Rotary. And they share a thirst for adventure, which has included cresting the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Africa. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Rotary International President-Nominee, Jennifer Jones.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, and thank you to the entire team who has been working on producing this for months. It is a joy to be able to be here with all of you from all over the world, and a very special thank you to District Governor Darrell and to Cindy Dora for all of the organizational effort that went into this. I know this is the fourth in what has been a very profound series. We've heard from Sylvia Whitlock, who opened the door for all of us women to be able to sit where we are today and participate in service in such a profound way. Then we heard from Jenny Stotts, a firecracker who is our future, showing us that even through adversity, even through some maybe inappropriate comments, she found a way to carve out a path and a future for her in our great organization. And then we heard from my really great friend, Dean Roars, as she talked about fighting the good fight. Dean is an incredible leader and someone who I consider, all three of the ladies I consider to be very, very good friends. So it's a delight to be here with you today, to be able to share some of my own personal reflections, a little bit of my own journey, and some of my thoughts about women in Rotary and diverse perspectives, something that I think we need to give a lot of time to as we enter into the next several years of our organization, and for many more years, for that matter, to come. You know, I'm very excited to be our organization's first female president. I'm asked the question all the time, how does it feel? I'm very excited, obviously, to be able to assume this role. I can tell you that on the day that I was interviewed and then subsequently called to receive the information of the selection, I was overjoyed. And then the committee members invited me onto a call where they each had an opportunity to reflect upon perhaps something I had said during the course of the interview that touched them and impacted them in the way that they made their decision. And one of the things that they said, and it's something that I've been speaking quite honestly about, one after another, they said, we selected you because you were a qualified candidate, the most qualified candidate, not because of your gender. And you know, that is a really incredible statement to sort of think at this point in time in our organization, that, you know, we have now a collection of women that have risen to the ranks in our organization, that, you know, it was time that someone was qualified, because we had to go through all of the same kinds of building blocks that our male counterparts each went through as well. Now, I believe that diverse perspectives, as I said, is one of the most important things. And, you know, as much as I want to talk about the fact that we need diversity, and that, you know, being the first woman is very unique, I don't want to think for one moment as we enter into this discussion today that being reflective upon being equally balanced between male and female takes away from the fact that we need to open opportunities and doors for women. We need to mentor women. We need to raise them up and provide a future where someday our daughters and our granddaughters don't have to have a conversation about equality and acceptance. Quite candidly, I think it's our moral imperative to ensure that all people are treated with fairness, with dignity, with respect, and opportunity. Let me begin, I guess, with a level-setting statement. Being pro-woman is not being anti-man. We have set a target, our board has set a target for us as an organization that we try to achieve 30% of female leadership by the year 2030. I think we can do much, much better than this. Right now, our global female population sits at 25%. In some parts of our Rotary world, it sits above the 30 and even 35 percentile. In parts of the Caribbean, even in the high 40 percentage. We are making incredible strides. Our board actually for the past, and our presidents for the past 5 years, have made bringing women and members under the age of 40 a very definitive priority for our organization. Sadly, in those 5 years cumulatively, in both of those categories, we have only moved the needle less than 2 percentage points. So what does being a woman in this leadership position mean? I believe that it means shining a light on what is possible, that young women and young men can look forward and see themselves reflected in authentic leadership opportunity. I think it sends a message to women the world over that we need to raise each other up. We need to nurture and we need to mentor each other into positions so that we all have an opportunity to grow and to shine. Now, as I said, I also believe that that means that we should be looking for the best and the brightest. And sometimes that means that there are male colleagues that we need to raise up just as much as our female colleagues. I want to tell you about an interesting exercise that I went through back in January. I had the privilege to serve as the moderator of what is called the International Assembly. This is a meeting annually that we hold in our organization where we bring together 535 district governors and their partners and spouses from around the world for international training. And there are 40 international training leaders that are selected that conduct this kind of training opportunity for all of these governors. They come a week in advance and they're trained on how to train the governors. Well, in my role as moderator of this event, I went to the president and I said, you know, I want to try and achieve gender balance, gender parity in the people that we select for the training leader positions. These are very coveted positions, and never before have we seen gender reflected as meaningfully as we maybe have had in the past couple of years. And so this year, I went to task as I was looking at all of the applications, and I said, you know, I want to try and make it 50-50. And I went through and I selected all of the different people, and there's a lot of different criteria between geography and culture and whether they've been a training leader already and we want to bring them back, a lot of different factors to sort of weigh into the selection process. And so I went through this, and at the end of the day, when I looked at the ratio, 38% of the members who were selected were women. I didn't get to 50%. But the reality was, I selected the right people. I didn't want to go back and play a quota game just to make sure that we had gender parity. I wanted the best and the brightest. And I think that that's a message that we need to carry through our organization. We need to open opportunities and we need to nurture, but we need to make sure that we're doing it so that we have the best and the brightest in all of the positions in our organization. Quite candidly, to increase women in our organization is just good business. And I think that's the way we need to look at it. It is a business case. We have a market share that is undermined, undertapped, that we could look at increasing and growing. If this were in our own professional lives, wouldn't we look at it that way? Why would we turn down when we know that half of the world's population is female, bringing us up to a more equitable balance in our membership? We know that there are challenges in certain parts of the world, but you know what? That's why our new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force and statement for our organization is so fundamentally important, because it's going to elevate the level of conversation around the world about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what that means. It's a conversation that we need to have in order for us to make a difference. In one culture, the conversation might be, how do they improve the age parity? In another culture, it might be gender. In another, it might be age, gender, and sexual orientation. But if we're going to reflect our communities, we need to have these meaningful conversations. And this is something that I'm incredibly excited about. And one of our international directors, Valerie Wafer, is chairing that initiative. And I know that the task force has just been announced, and I know that we're going to see great things and, you know, really meaningful ideas that are going to be born out of what it is that they bring to the table. Today, I do want to share with you a little bit of my own personal journey and reflect with you in a large part about the word mentorship. I want us to think a little bit about mentorship and the importance of it as we continue through this talk, and in particular, when we go to questions and answers. I really do want to have the opportunity to hear from you and be a little bit more interactively engaged in this talk. I was very fortunate that when I was a young girl, my parents told my brothers and I, through their actions and through their words, that we could achieve anything. The world was our oyster, and to dream big. And you know, when I think of the very first mentors that I had in my life, of course, it's my parents. And they really did instill something quite profound in all of us to be able to think that way. I've never thought small. I've always wanted to think big, and I've always encouraged those around me to do the same. You know, when I was in grade 2, it was the first International Women's Day that was held back in 1975, that was officially held under the United Nations, and the first one here in Canada. My mom, who would have been in her, I guess, early 30s at that point in time, she sent away to the Canadian government for a package of pamphlets and stickers and posters and cards and all of these beautiful, shiny things. And so that year for Show and Tell, something where you take something into your classroom and tell your fellow classmates about it, that was what I took in for Show and Tell that year. I took in all the pretty stickers, and I was telling them all about women's liberation and how we all needed to be respected and we needed to have equality. I know that my grade 2 teacher, who probably was in her early 20s at the point, was quite delighted with this presentation. And she sent me down the hallway to the grade 8 classroom. And there was a male teacher who she knew would, they probably had arm wrestled over equality a little bit in the staff room, and she knew that she was going to get under his skin a little bit by sending him down. So here I was, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, walking down the hallway to tell this gentleman and the grade 8 students all about feminism and women's lib. I look back on that as one of the most charming little remembrances of being in grade school, and I wish more than anything that those posters and stickers could be found somewhere today, that I could see them and take a look at them once again, because they really did play a formative part in, I think, the early thinking that I had about what I was able to reach out for and try to accomplish, and to never put a barrier in front of myself. Fast forward, a couple of decades to when I became a district governor. And I was the first woman district governor in my area, which is in Windsor, Ontario, and we border as an international district on parts of southern Michigan. And as a female district governor, I still had clubs at that point in time. I served in 2007 and 2008. And there were still a handful of clubs in our district that did not permit women to join. And, I didn't want to go in guns a-blazing, but I did want to make a point that I thought that they might perhaps want to, take a look at that. And so I was invited to this one club. They had been one of the power broker clubs of our district in the heyday, back a couple of decades earlier. And a couple of the members of that club, they were all male, but a couple of the members of that club were friends that I had met that were assistant governors. And we had met at district conferences and different things like this. And they invited me because that club, which had been a power broker club, had gone down to about, I guess, probably 8 or 10 members. And they wanted to reinvigorate, to re-energize. So they asked me to come over, and I went across the border and I showed up at this club, and I sat at the head of this table, and it was a long table, and there were probably maybe 10 or 15 people who were at this meeting that day. And I stood up and I did my best to put the human face on what we do, and a really great pep talk about Rotary. And it's the kind of thing where I was looking around the people at the table, and I thought, okay, I'm pretty sure we're connecting. I'm pretty sure this is going well. And I ended. And this older gentleman at the end of the table, he put up his hand, old Mr. Krieger, and he said, "I want to say something." And you could see everyone in the room do this. Oh. He stood up and he said, "When they decided to let women into Rotary, I led the charge against it. Today, I want to rescind my position, and I want a hug." He had seen me walk in and hug the two assistant district governors, and he said at that point in time that things had changed. Now, that was a really lovely moment. And Mr. Krieger at that point in time was in his mid-90s. And for the next couple of years while he was still alive and I visited that club, it was always a charming moment to be able to receive each other with a warm smile and, yes, with a hug. I went on to being in my younger professional life. I started out as a radio reporter. And as a rookie reporter, I was covering meetings in the mid 80s. And I found myself, of course, at Rotary clubs that obviously did not have women already in their membership. And I remember going to the largest club in my home community. And I've shared this with them since then, but they scared the bejesus out of me. It was all of these men, and they were all, doing. They would have, big speakers in, and at that point in time, I was intimidated. It was a daunting experience to go and cover their meetings. And one of the coolest things now is that many of those members are still members and have become some of my dearest friends. And, it's those barriers that sometimes we put in front of ourselves. And as younger people growing up, what we see around us sometimes isn't always the way it is. And so I have found myself at varying points in my life where I've had to step out of my comfort zone. I've had to do things that challenged me beyond what perhaps was my comfort level. One of which was I was asked for a number of years if I would chair our local Chamber of Commerce board. I have a small business, and quite candidly, sitting at the table with the president of Chrysler Canada and other executives from our community, again, felt like a daunting experience. I thought, what is it that I'm going to bring to the table? After 4 or 5 years of being cajoled into it, I joined the board, and then subsequently, I did chair the board a few years later. But what I learned, and what I think is most important, is that we all bring something unique to the conversation. It doesn't necessarily matter about your title or the level of where you're at, that because we bring diverse perspective to the table, we all have something to offer that's quite different. And so, I would bring up something that perhaps someone else had never thought of, and they would likewise be able to counter back and forth. And we, as Rotarians, we do this. And because we have this diverse perspective, that's why we are able to solve the world's most pressing challenges. Now, I know in that chamber position that I was intimidated to take on, we ended up under my term being able to be classified the #1 chamber in our country, because I took a concerted effort to do things differently, to build the team, to empower the team, and then to communicate it out. Likewise, I went on after that to chair the Board of Governors at the university where I attended, the University of Windsor. Again, a very daunting experience. We were dealing with billions of dollars of assets and acquisitions, things that were clearly out of my area of comfort and perhaps expertise. But you know what? I knew that that was something that was going to challenge me to grow, and it did. And it was something that became a platform for how I was able to engage at the Rotary board level and beyond. And every step of the way, that has been because of mentorship. Mentorship can open doors, mentorship can cause you to think differently, and mentorship can affirm belief in yourself and in your actions. One of the things I reflected upon prior to and getting ready for this talk was that most of the mentors that I've had in my life have all been men. I think back to when I first did my district governor training as a district governor nominee, and it was the first time that I met a man by the name of Monty Audenart. Monty was an incredible Rotarian who we sadly lost to a battle with cancer a few years ago. But back in 2005, when I was starting this training, he was the director-elect for Rotary International, and he had convened the training session, and we all went out to Winnipeg. And that's where I first met Dean Roars. She and I served as governors together, and we did our training together, the very first training that we got a chance, Nick and I, to meet her and her husband, Rhino, and we became lifelong friends for the rest of our life. And it was at that training, I got to tell you, that Dean and I sat in a training session learning about Rotary, but our husbands sat in the partner training session. And at that time, they were taught that brown was the new black, that they should bring an extra pair of nylons in their jacket pocket in case we ran our pantyhose, and that it would be a really good idea to bring a satin pillowcase so that I could get an extra night out of my hairdo. Now, I will tell you that both Nick and Rhino caused a small revolt. And because they spoke up, as we know happens, they were then charged with coming up with what the partner program looked like in the years to come. I'm glad to say it's come a long way. That was one of the first mentors in Rotary that I can tell you profoundly affected my life. I can see his hand has been woven through so many of the things that I have been able to achieve, whether it's been quietly, behind the scenes, or whether it was more overtly in his wisdom and guidance and confidence to me. And that has meant so very much. I reflect upon the second mentor that has probably meant the greatest deal to me, and that is my very good friend, John Germ, who was our international president, and I happened to be very fortunate to be selected by him to serve as his vice president. We have a generation between us, but we have such an incredible opportunity and have to this day. I think we probably talk every day. We're kind of on speed dial with each other. We talk through things, and he's been able to provide me with the kind of insight and guidance about our organization in ways I never could have learned through reading a book or looking through the code of policy or the manuals of procedure. It's life experience and how you make decisions. And he never once, felt threatened by us sharing in a leadership journey. And that's the last thought that I'll leave with you before turning it over to questions, is that, good leaders give it away. We don't need to be victorious in our leadership. We need to be victorious in raising others up. We need to be victorious in looking for the best and the brightest, for finding and spotlighting those around us who we know have the ability to serve with greatness in our organization. And so my challenge to all of you, my last challenge, and my computer's over here, so I'm going to look quickly, but I want you in the next 30 seconds, each of you, to write in the chat room just the name of who your mentor has been. Let's just spend literally 20 or 30 seconds watching those names fly by and paying a sort of tip of the hat to the people who have made the biggest differences in our lives. I'm going to try and read out some of these names as they go by. So put in your mentors right now and let's see who they are. Oh, it's going so fast. I can't even keep up. Holy mackerel. All I can tell you right now as we're all watching this together is that it's men and women. And isn't that beautiful? Wow. I just saw Dean Rohr's name go by again. Cindy Dora, one of the people who obviously put her heart and soul into putting this program together. Oh, Chuck Keller, one of our past presidents. What a joy to be able to see all of those names, continue to put them in. And I know that we're going to switch over to doing some questions and answers. And Pete, I'll turn the floor over to you. I know you've been monitoring the chat room and have some questions. I'd be delighted to answer anything.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. We expected great, and we weren't disappointed. As you can imagine, we already have many questions. But
Let's
first,
go.
as a reminder to our attendees, please post your questions and only your questions in the Q&A box on your screen. So Jennifer, one of the questions we have that we'd like to start with is, how do you balance family and all your involvement with Rotary?
Okay, I'm laughing because I know that all of you are thinking the exact same thing. How do we create balance, particularly in the middle of what we all now, I think, affectionately call the Zoom pandemic? You know, certainly I don't want to make light of obviously the global pandemic, but we all have been very caught up in our ability to connect in these ways that are so profound with people in every corner of the world. I guess the balance, certainly for me, you know, one of the silver linings clearly out of something like this, where we're in the midst of, you know, this horrible pandemic, but one of the silver linings has been being in my own bed for months on end, and, you know, being able to cook. I love to cook. I actually planted a garden this year. I haven't planted a garden since I was a little girl. You know, every day would come in with my fresh capture of cucumbers and tomatoes and herbs. And every day I would say to Nick, I'm a farmer. And he would laugh, you know, he would just laugh at me, but I was taking a lot of pleasure out of something that I hadn't done for a long time. I love to walk. I love to golf. I don't get to do it as much as I wish I could. But, you know, golf is another thing, another lesson. I'm going to make this really short because I know we've got a lot of questions. But, you know, when I first married Nick, he took me out and he was teaching me how to play golf. I was using my grandfather's old hickory shafts, and I could hit anything with a 5-iron. And anyway, he quickly replaced them with other clubs because he wanted to hang those ones on the wall. But, you know, one of the things that I learned, it was a level setting experience, golf, for me, because at first I was so intimidated about, well, you know, the people behind us are coming up so fast, and I'd have to pick up my ball and run because I never wanted to, you know, slow anybody down or, you know, be accused of, oh, you know, we got women on the golf course today. And you know, quite candidly, as my game improved, I realized that, you know, there's good golfers on both sides of the gender equation, and, you know, understanding good etiquette was really what it was all about. And so, you know, that was kind of an unexpected maybe road down gender balance. But that is one of the ways that I like to relax as well. I wish I get to do more of it. But those are, I guess, a few of the ways. Family is the most important, and we're very lucky that we have a family cottage or cabin, as I know some refer to it, which is only about a half-an-hour drive from our house. And so even to go out, you know, just being on Lake Erie, you know, within 2 minutes, I can feel my whole entire blood pressure going down, and, you know, just take a deep breath and gives me a chance to reflect upon different things.
Thank you. So we've got a number of questions from different people asked different ways, but they all add up to the same thing. They're asking what we should be able to do about clubs that do not have any women. And are you contemplating any method of helping district leaders who want to deal with that?
Well, it's a great question, and let me start by offering a little bit of perspective on this one. You know, when I first heard about there being still all male clubs that existed, my first instinct was to say, all right, show me where they are, because I want to go visit, and you know, I want to have a little conversation with these folks. But you know what? Obviously, you know, we learn things, and quite honestly, there's all women clubs as well. I will be really candid with you and say I'm not a fan of either type, all male or all female. And I know that there's high functioning ones in either side, because I really do fundamentally believe that it's this diverse perspective that I talked about earlier, that, you know, we can't all look at things the same way. We need to be challenged by each other, whether it's by gender, by culture, by age. You know, that's how we make the best decisions, when we have that opportunity to learn from each other. So quite candidly, I'm a fan of seeing those kinds of clubs evolve. I know that women-based clubs have often grown out of the fact that they weren't permitted to join a male club. You know, I think we have an opportunity right now to take a look at the formation of new clubs, and maybe some of those members being able to join in harmony. And I think we've got a little bit of a ways to go, but you know, I don't know. I'll be this bold. In North America, I don't think there's any room right now. And if you tell me about a club that's all male, I'd be glad to go visit them.
Well, Jennifer, we've got a couple in our district. Maybe you can make a trip on down.
Well, you know, Ravi Ravindran, when he was president, he boldly stated that he would pull the charter on any all-male clubs. I'm not sure whether or not any of those happened, and I'm not sure if I'll be so bold as to say that today, but I would like to do some, I would like to have some constructive conversations.
So another question which a number of people have asked in one way or another is, how can we encourage women to move up the Rotary ladder?
Well, another great question, and it's one that we just need to be on the lookout for good talent. We need to be looking around us in our own clubs. I mean, that's where it starts. Let's be really honest. It starts at the club level, and we need to be looking for people in our own clubs and encouraging someone, for example, to be on a club board. And once they have some of that experience, to maybe, you know, become the club president. And after that, that there's a world of opportunities within our organization that, you know, we really, you know, can provide these opportunities. But it's incumbent upon us to open those doors, because sometimes, you know, it's like this secret, you know, secret other life going on, because for many of us, we just know our club experience. We don't know what's beyond that, and, you know, what could be open to us, what possibilities might be in front of us. And so I think, you know, as I look at my own role as a mentor, I certainly, as I travel across the world, I make notes about both men and women that I meet that I believe should take on positions in our organization, that I want to nudge, that I want to make sure that when there's a call for nominations, that I'm able to say, okay, I remember this one, and this one, and I want to make sure that, you know, I put their names out there. We all have to be looking after, you know, cultivating that at every level of our organization, but it starts at the club. And I will say one thing: we as women need to be better at supporting women. We need to be better at looking out for each other and not being competitive with each other, understanding that when we all excel, the water level rises for everyone. And so, you know, think about that as you look around your own club and district and even zone, and how we can do a better job.
Thank you. So another question we've got from a number of people is, with the changes we've seen in response to COVID, what do you think should stick in Rotary forever?
Well, clearly, we have seen a lot of things that have had a positive effect on our organization. Our new strategic action plan that Stephanie Urchik has so brilliantly overseen has 4 key components to it: to increase our impact, to expand our reach, to enhance our participant engagement, and the 4th, increase our ability to adapt. Now, when that was first composed and we were sitting around the table talking about these pillars of this plan, our ability to adapt was quite candidly one of the ones where we thought, this is going to be something that's a little bit more internal. We know that we've wanted to move our clubs, our districts, our Rotary world into digital platforms in a more meaningful way, particularly through training. When you look at the savings of human and financial resources and how we're able to connect in this kind of way, we need to take advantage of that. COVID moved our cheese within 2 weeks. We were able to jump onto virtual platforms, and we are never ever going to not have this kind of connectivity again. And so I think we need to harness it. I think we need to look at, when are the appropriate times that we need to be together, because, we need to be together. We know that the research tells us we join and we stay in Rotary because of service and because of fellowship, friendship. And we need to be together to do those things. But there's other parts of our business that we can do in this kind of a way. So I take that from the RI board level all the way through to the club level. If I'm a Rotary club right now, I want to give serious consideration to what is my hybrid model going forward. 2 meetings in a month when we're able to meaningfully meet safely again together. 2 meetings in a month, maybe one is a service project and one is a fellowship event, because those are the things we know we need to do. But maybe 2 of them are virtual events or kind of in-person / virtual events, because we now know that you can attract speakers from any corner of the world to come and be with you. And, that never, I don't think was in the realm of possibility for us when, pre-COVID. So we need to take advantage of, I think, this kind of thinking and continue down this path. It is not unusual for any of us to be sitting in our living rooms and connecting with people of any club, of anywhere, somewhere in the world.
Thank you, Jennifer. So this audience is very excited about the fact that you're about to become our international president. And we know it's relatively early in your preparation for that. But we would like to know if you are willing to share any of your priorities or goals for that time.
Sure. Well, you're right. It is early days. One of the things, even in early days, one of the things that gets expedited very quickly is your goal development, the development of your theme, different things that we traditionally know are parts of our Rotary infrastructure. And while it's too early to talk about goals, I can tell you definitively that diversity, equity, and inclusion will be a very large part of the conversation, without question. That will be. I also want to ensure that we're growing our external audience. We do a good job in many ways of talking to ourselves, but I really do think that there's an opportunity for us to showcase what it is that we do to a bigger, broader audience and let them, shine a little bit of a light on us. Because when people see what we do, when they see the human face and the stories of what it is that we do as people of action, then like-minded people want to join with us. So using my vocational background, that will be no surprise to anyone that I do want to cultivate external, whether it's conversations with other global leaders, but also different media platforms to elevate our profile as an organization. I think it will serve us well to build point of pride when we see ourselves reflected through other people's words.
That sounds great. So another question that maybe is a little bit softer. What book impacted you the most to become who you are now?
Ooh, this is a tough one. Well, you know what? I mean, there's a lot of books. Let me use this one. Lean In. If anybody has read this book, oh gosh, and why am I going to blank on her name right now? Anyway, many of you, somebody jump in and tell me who it is. Steinberg. Anyway, she wrote the book about becoming one of the first female executives through Facebook, and Sheryl Steinberg. And anyway, talking about some of the things that she had to come up against, certainly moving into the larger corporate structure, going for an interview and asking, where the ladies' room was, and the president of the company not even knowing that one existed, different things like this. And I know that was something when I read that book a few years ago, that it resonated in me about the ability, as I spoke about a lot earlier, for us to reach out to other women and to offer a hand out to bring people along with us in this journey, and to create a safe platform perhaps for us to be able to have conversations that are honest, to be able to say to somebody, you know what, I don't know what's going on here. Can you fill me in? And, we should never, it's one of the things I tell people all the time sitting around the board table, there is no such thing as a dumb question. We need to, sometimes be honest with each other and say, help me along, help me understand. If you arrive at a place in your life where you think you know everything, I think we all know that you're wrong. So we need to do that kind of stuff. Another book I read recently was Paul Harris's autobiography. One of the things that I found delightfully charming about it was that he was a bit of a rascal and a bit of a prankster. And I don't know if I should admit this, but I kind of saw some personal traits that I had in common with our founder, and like to have a little bit of fun sometimes and stir things up. So it was a little bit charming to kind of read out of his own mouth some of the things that he reflected upon as he was looking along with the other colleagues to form our organization. And, I think that sort of comes back to why we join in that whole networking, the idea of networking for a while started to become a bit of a bad way of thinking about us. But, that's why we were formed, for this networking, for this ability to connect with each other. And I think of my global connections. Rotary has made me, and I know like everyone else on the call, it's made us global citizens. If you put something onto social media right now, don't you get a kick out of watching, like, oh, somebody from Turkey just made a comment, and somebody from Australia, and somebody from Lebanon, and somebody from Singapore? I mean, I think that is, one of the strengths of social media. There's some downsides to it, but certainly it has opened up doors to really punctuating now more than ever the way that we are global citizens. And Paul Harris started all of that, and that was one of the other books. And then I like a good beach read too.
Awesome. Well, our district governor has a couple of very dynamic daughters, and one of them has asked what you would recommend to encourage young people to join Rotary.
Well, first and foremost, I think that, having conversations with different Rotary clubs is a great idea, to go sort of, for lack of to venture out and try different clubs, talk to different people who are in different clubs, because, club to club, it's kind of different. And if you think back to Jenny Stott's story, she was in a club where, she was having inappropriate comments made to her. And, who wants to exist in a climate like that? And she took it upon herself to go out and start a different kind of club. And so to younger people who are out there, if you're looking at a club and you're visiting a Rotary club and it's limited in the area that you're in, and perhaps they're a little antiquated and things don't really resonate with you, it's an opportunity to start a new club. That's where we're going to see the most profound growth opportunity in our organization, is the formation of new clubs. My sister-in-law started a new club just over a year and a half ago, and she was the first president, and my brother is now the second president of the club. But they approached it from a very different perspective. They are all basically in their early 40s and all the way through sort of their early 30s through their early 40s, and most of them have kids. And part of the reason that they didn't join clubs was that they didn't want to spend time away from their families. So what do? They bring their kids to the meetings. How brilliant is that? And you know what? They start in a traditional way by reciting the 4-way test, but it's not the members who do it. It's the kids who do it. And I think that is just super cool. They've also existed now from a place where they spent their first year saying, you know what? We don't know about the rule book. We're just going to do what we think is right. And, they sought, guidance along the way of what they were doing. They've now come to a place where they know what it is that works for them. And now they're starting to put more of the governance around it and more of the protocols in place that they know that they need to sustain themselves as a club. So opportunities to start something new, I don't know. I think that that would be one of the coolest things, to get a group of young friends together. And let me just make one distinctive point, because I like to talk about this and we haven't touched on it. But in terms of age, when I talked earlier at the beginning about these demographics of trying to attract more women and younger members under the age of 40, we know that we're trying to bring in younger members because we need to sustain ourselves as an organization. But I really fundamentally think what we need to be doing is attracting young thinkers, people who think young. And if you think about that, I say all the time, have you met a 25-year-old who's old, stuck in their ways? Have you met an 85-year-old who's young and vibrant and thinks outside the box? We need to be thinking about the progressive thinkers in our organization. And I know that when I sit down with people, whether they're 22 or 85, if we're all thinking in a fresh, progressive way, great things happen.
Well, we're very excited to see your leadership. As always, there are more questions than